I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing frogs.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got that.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lord Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the
an
Chinese
erratic
Mickey
detective, is Mickey Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Gildarie, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hello there. Welcome to the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon show. This is a show that is not pre-taped or comes across in Zoom. This is a live program that is recorded live instantly as time goes on in the studio of Daybreak News in Laluni Street, Queenstown. Wherever you are, good evening, good night, good afternoon. In London, of course, it's morning. Good morning. I don't know, I'll have to ask my guests what time is it in Australia and India. But thanks for being with us. We have in the studio this evening, what word can I say? Political pedigree, people with long practice, experience in social activism, political activism. But this evening, because we have three guests, we'll cut out a lot of the inconsequentialities because when you look around, time goes. This evening, we are discussing something that put Guyana on the map in Africa. Our president, Dr. Irfan Ali, earned a prestigious African award that is recognized throughout the continent of Africa and in the world. Africa Global Leadership Award. We will be discussing that this evening. My guests are people who have made this program a success. They have never refused to come on, and they have been here more than 3 times. Alphabetically, Guyanese 007, James Bond. And just let me say, in case you didn't know, a UK documentary filmmaker from the UK traveled around the world looking for people who named James Bond. And he made a documentary of those James Bonds. And our local James Bond is in the documentary. So go to YouTube, type in James Bond, the other fellow, and you will see the Guyanese 007. Next to him is someone who's been in the PPP since he was in high school. That must have been more than 40, 45, 50 years ago. DHARAMKUMAR SEERAJ. I have known him for more than 35 years, never called him anything but SEERAJ. And then my teenage friend from Wortmanville, Walking Ross, we know each other since that time. GERALD PERREIRA, one of the longest serving Pan-Africanists. Alphabetically, of course, we start with 007, and we'll ask him if he is proud of Dr. Ali earning one of Africa's most prestigious awards. James?
Thank you, Freddie. Remarkable memory, man. Remarkable memory. Thanks for having me here again. Happy New Year. Greetings to you and Mr. Gildarie, your families as well. The mother guests, good seeing you guys. On the question of the award, I think when I saw that President Ali received the award, I called you.
Yeah.
And the context in which I sought to look at the award was to examine the Guyanese psyche, how we treat our own. I can remember a few years ago, President Burnham was awarded with the Oliver Tambo Award, a very prestigious award as well. He was nominated for it. And there was a outcry against him getting the award. By Guyanese, some section of society in Guyana. And it puzzled me a bit. The reason is, I know what President Burnham would have done for the continent of Africa in terms of the non-aligned movement, in terms of against the apartheid movement as well, in terms of supporting regimes in Africa. I know of his influence in the African diaspora as well. And if anyone could say he was undeserving of such an award, I couldn't see the logic. And again, now that President Ali would have received an award, I saw there was some objection to it. I saw and I read their comments, and some of the criticisms were that the PP regime has always been discriminating, marginalizing the Afro-Guyanese community, that his tenure of 2 years or 3 years did not warrant a prestigious award. And I was like trying to balance the two, saying, on the one hand, yes, President Burnham awarded, and we should have celebrated that. Again, I'm of the view, if one of our own is being given an award, a prestigious award, we should find some reason to celebrate. And more so in the context in which President Ali would have used his voice for reparations. I think that we should have, understandably the criticisms notwithstanding, we should have, as a Guyanese community, celebrated that one of our own is receiving such an award. Again, the criticisms, no one could say they're without merit. Every criticism must have some merit to it. And the groups, that the 11 groups, and there were 11 groups who raised objections to the award. But again, I believe that it was a time and a place in which Guyanese, irrespective of race, should have celebrated such an award. And more so, that President Ali is now on the global stage and is using his voice for reparations for the African persons of African descent, whether they're in the diaspora or not.
There's a lot said there, and there's a lot that could be challenged in that presentation. But we go over to alphabetically to Gerald PERREIRA, one of Guyana's famous Pan-Africanists. I've known Gerald in the Pan-African movement when we were 18, 19, 20 together. You're still a Pan-Africanist.
Bill always.
And,
revolutionary Pan-Africanist.
Revolutionary Pan-Africanist.
There's a big difference.
So he'll die a
There's a big difference with somebody just being a Pan-Africanist.
And a revolutionary. Mobutu was a Pan-Africanist too.
From Africa.
Yes. You won't find one African leader who won't tell you that they're not a Pan-Africanist.
But they're not a revolutionary Pan-Africanist.
Jonas Savimbi was a Pan-Africanist too.
From Angola.
Mm-hmm. And you know what he did. Right. He worked with the racist regime in South Africa to stem the tide of liberation in the frontline states.
What is the origin?
We got a lot of fake Pan-Africanists in our midst.
He was cut from a different cloth.
What's that you have on there? What's
This is from Ghana.
The country that President Ali just returned to the Ghana.
He didn't bring this for you by chance.
No. I got this. I picked this up. I went to Ghana. I picked this up.
And so how long you have that?
I got this one.
That's a long time you've been
Well, I had this. Well, my son spent some time in Ghana, so he sent me one or two. But I picked this up. I got it a good time. I hear things.
Okay. What's the name of that, Gerald?
it's you know, we used to call it-
That doesn't look like the type of thing James Bond.
No, I ordered some actually. It's got a
I don't wear suit.
I'm talking about Sean Connery.
Oh yeah. He had one. He had
Actually,
one
I have two
movie.
like this. I was tempted to wear one this evening, but
Oh, you
I didn't have the
should've-
time. Yeah, I didn't have time to.
Well, we got an hour. You can make a call and somebody can bring it on. It look good. It look good.
Yes.
Years ago, you put on a dashiki, you know, and you turned to Eddie Rodney and say, Eddie, how I look in this thing, but you don't remember that.
We know each other too long. Gerald,
Yes.
you want to analyze that presentation?
Well, what James said, there's a lot of mistakes there. I think, first of all, I can recall the only place many years ago you could have gone and pick up books on Pan-Africanism by great Pan-Africanists. Books by Sekou Touré or Kwame Nkrumah, the writings of those men was from the Michael Ford bookstore. Yeah. That was the only place. Giving all credit to him, his credit, I believe in giving credit where it is due. You can recall when Chedi Jagan stand up and he's speaking at May Day Parade and so. He will always speak about Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré. I remember the names he used to call. Ahmed Ben Bella. Those were the names he used to call because those were revolutionary Pan-Africanists and quite, they were Marxist in their orientation. So if you wanted those publications, you could have gone there and picked up those C. Chabo, the ANC publication. They used to sell at Michael Ford. You could buy them things at 25 cents, 50 cents, 50 cents.
Yeah, I worked in Michael Ford.
Good. So you would know, you were there,
I worked
right?
there as a 17-year-old youth. Yeah.
Now, the Oliver Tambo Award, I think Dr. Jagan was a recipient of it too, right?
Correct.
Right. When Burnham name popped up for it, you know who opposed it? It wasn't, I give credit to his due. I've never batted for the PPP. I bat for truth. For truth. I bat for truth.
I like that. Whenever you come to this point, he says that. I am for truth.
When
what is
it
truth?
came in at the time, when they said they were going to give, the ANC was going to award Burnham the Oliver Tambo Award. It was the Walter Rodney colleagues who led the campaign to prevent Burnham from getting it. I can tell you who was the chief leading the charge. Horace Campbell.
Yeah,
Dr. Horace Campbell, Professor Horace Campbell led the charge. And WPA activists abroad campaigned, right? The PPP, giving them the credit, did not object to Burnham getting it. Because the PPP knew about the contribution Burnham made to the liberation struggle. Good? It was the WPA, it was Walter Rodney's people at WPA, activists abroad, who led that campaign. That's the first thing that we need to understand. On the issue of the President Ali getting this African Prosperity Network Award, I don't know, it was a big hue and cry and people writing letters and protesting. And those groups, how many groups you said?
There were nine. There were 11 signatures, 11 signatures to the letter, including Hamilton Green, but 9 organizations.
Yeah. I would say much on those groups. I'll just ignore it. I just said pass. Because I think those groups exist on paper. Right? I have no apology for that. Those groups exist on paper and it's crossed over the same people in the same organization, in one organization in the other. Good? And
they recycle in the sun.
This African Prosperity Network Award. Go and look at the people who founded that organization. These are budding capitalists. Good? People who are promoting, the African continent has tremendous problems, right? You got to understand, when you travel Africa, you'll see the underdevelopment. There's only certain countries broke down. Look at this, you see this book here? How Europe and America are still underdeveloping Africa. And I'm cited in this book from my writings on thing, right? On that. Good, and you'll see what imperialism, what the Western countries are still doing to Africa. Now let's go to Ghana, where the president Nana Akufo-Addo, his party has promoted neoliberal economics for years. The gap between the have and the have-nots in Ghana suffers tremendous. You know, when Jerry Rawlings left office, Jerry Rawlings was going good until he followed the advice of his finance minister then, and they implemented what you call the structural adjustment program. You remember the same thing that I
did, yeah.
implemented here. And it created havoc in Ghana. It created a middle class, a group of entrepreneurs, young professionals running around in.
All right, Gerald. So, if we could just stick to the
No, why I'm mentioning this is because it's much about doing nothing. Nothing is wrong. President Ali is a champion of neoliberal economics. He's pursuing the same economic program that was imposed on Mr. Hoyt, and from Mr. Hoyt right down, every president has been running with that. So if a body that is committed to that type of economic model sees that the award is not for a liberation struggle, it is given to any person who they see, right, that they feel has made a contribution in the global arena in leadership. And they give you don't have to be an African to get the award.
All right.
And it's part CARICOM. They mentioned that CARICOM leaders have been involved in this partnering with this organization to develop trade links
we
between
come back to
Africa.
that, but I don't think he was giving it because of his neoliberalism.
No, I am not saying that. I'm not saying that. But I'm not saying that. For me, it's much ado about nothing. Right? What I'm more concerned about, right? This is why I'm more concerned about Freddie. Why single out the president just on this, that has been identified as the
recipient of the Africa Global Leadership Award.
Right? Why pick up on that? And there are other areas we can pick up on, which I'll come to.
Yeah. SEERAJ, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, thanks, Freddie, for inviting me to be on the program. I'm happy to be.
And you're early.
I'm happy to be in the company of
007.
007, and of course my comrade over here, so PERREIRA, who I have admiration for, and as he stated, a revolutionary. I won't lay claim to being a revolutionary, although I would want to, because I haven't really done much revolutionary things in my days. Not to
no.
say that
I know you a long time. You have. You're just being modest. You have.
So I have thoughts about
you're one of my favorite. You're one of my favorite PPP guys.
Yeah, right. So as a matter of fact, Freddie, I must admit that I have not even taken the time to look at persons who would have objected, because quite frankly, I think, as Gerald said, it's much
organizations,
right? I can't even say that I saw it. I pay absolutely no attention to it. And I'll tell you something. If I'm to get into trouble with the law, right, and I have to call a law, James will be one of the person I'll call, because I have that confidence in him to represent his client without any favor or whatsoever, and keeping with what the oath that he has taken.
You must be joking. You calling him because you're friend, but this man charges expensively.
No, their fees for friends and their fees for people who are not friends. Right? So one of the reasons I might call upon him is because of the fees also. And not that he will charge me that. But on this subject itself, President Irfan Ali has demonstrated leadership internally and externally. And when we look at these things, we have to look at our domestic situation, and then we have to project an image that we would want to be proud of in the region and internationally. And whilst I like the line that James would have taken, that whilst you have had some grumblings here, we as a nation should all applaud the fact that a Guyanese has been recognized by
the continent of Africa.
Yeah, by a well-established organization. It's not a political organization.
Correct.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a not-for-profit organization, civil society organization that is seeking to harness the energies, the power, the economy of different individuals to push the prosperity of the African people. And if they can pull on the strength of brothers from across the ocean, well, why not? And especially in keeping with what President Ali would have done, his reputation in terms of handling the border issue, his reputation in terms of being the youngest person at the forum, the United Nations Forum, and to have the guts to speak about what happened in those dark days, reparation, and to put it out there, to stand up there knowing very well that some superpowers look at this topic. And if a lot of people, if they don't get the approval, they don't talk about it. Ali just wade into it. And he said, I am standing here as a representative of our people here. And I'm telling you and I'm putting you on notice that as president of Guyana, I am talking about repatriation for what happened to our people 400 years ago. And people would have seen that. I mean, these are international events. And I think they are well within their rights to recognize him as one of the 7 persons who to have received this award recently in Ghana.
Look, I have spent a lifetime assessing Burnham. And I have not at any occasion overlooked the fact that there are some positives about Burnham in the area in which he stands out, foreign policy.
Correct.
He stands out
That's
there.
right.
And I think when you examine him holistically,
Yeah.
you can't divorce that. I was an advisor to the Grenadian government of Maurice Bishop. My work was very, very unannounced. There were people in Grenada who saw me and didn't know what I was doing. Christopher Rupert Roopnarine, Dr. Walter Rodney Brother. That was because of the nature of my work. So I know about Burnham's contribution. Good. But I also know, and I'm coming up to this now, I also know how they felt about Walter Rodney. So I'm going to throw this out to James and then the two of you. I think the Oliver Tambo Award was not given after the outcry. But I think Burnham found himself and will find himself always in the position that the Rodney thing would never go away because Rodney was no ordinary man. Rodney put Guyana on the map. He put African scholarship on the map. He put African on the map. Rodney is what...
and he wrote the precursor to this, how Africa underdeveloped, how Europe
so
underdeveloped
I think when you look at this the award is being given, and you look at this thing and you tell the Oliver Tambo committee, man, look about Rodney, what happened to Rodney? I think Burnham suffered because of that.
Rightly or wrongly. In my estimation, I was part of the commission of inquiry into the death of Walter Rodney. I was part of that commission.
You were a witness, or you were?
I was part of the commission.
Oh, you were
one of the lawyers.
One of the lawyers with Bassett.
2 commissions I was part of. The Linden Commission, the death of the Linden protesters, and the Walter Rodney death.
Okay, you were a lawyer questioning the witnesses.
And I could tell you at no time, and you could, there's no finger that was pointed to Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. There was speculation into state apparatus or state operations.
Well, that's the conclusion that the state had to be involved. They never said Burnham.
Well, again and again, we were dealing with blurred lines here. And we know for a fact that it is very difficult to attribute vicarious liability to Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham in this situation. What the facts would have shown too, and this is in no way to diminish the legacy of Lyndon Forbes.
Online. The commission inquiry report is online.
Yes, it is to diminish the legacy of Walter Rodney. As a matter of fact, I take pride in the fact that in 1979, when I was born, he was still alive. I was born the 3rd of February 1979. I think he was still alive there. But the point I wish to make is that there was evidence in the Commission of Inquiry given by Dr. Rupert Rupnarayan and others.
No. Rupnarayan did not testify.
He did not.
Did not testify.
Did not.
There was.
Did not even send a statement.
Forgive me on that one. But there was evidence in the Commission of Inquiry that pointed to the fact that the WPA was a militant organization.
Was a what?
Militant organization. Very militant. And I think one of a word that was used in cross was misadventure. Death by misadventure. I don't know if you can remember that phrase. In which Dr. Walter Rodney met his demise. Death by misadventure. So we can't go from a situation whereby there's absolutely no indication that Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham was involved to diminishing his legacy on a mere speculation allegation that for some, I don't know how the dots are connected to link him with the death of Walter Rodney.
I am stifled here because if I come in, I'm going to take up time. And this is a 3-man panel. I'm going to take up time. But there are some mistakes in that presentation. But alphabetically, Gerald, then.
Well, Freddie, I hold to the position that Burnham was not involved in it. As I told you earlier, I think a mistake that Burnham made was when Walter applied for the position at UG in the history department. I think Burnham should have intervened and, make sure that Walter got that job. And those, we know the persons who played the role in blocking Walter from getting that.
Well, if they're not alive to sue you for libel,
I ain't calling
go
names.
ahead. They're not alive to sue you for libel.
No, they're like, in this country, people like to take you and sue you. I ain't got money to give them, so I can go to jail. But sending me to jail will be the biggest mistake they'll make.
At your age, you can't survive jail.
Man, Freddie.
Anyway, go on.
You're a revolutionary.
You'd be surprised, Freddie. Right? You'd be surprised. But I'll tell you this. The state, you said it's state involvement. I believe, and there are things that you don't want to say. I don't think it's this program.
No, please say anything.
No.
This program, the intention when this program start was to contribute to Guyana's historiography.
The WPA was cited as a very militant organization. The WPA was accumulating weapons.
Tukumo Gunse was a guy, not Rupert Ryan. Tukumo Gunse was a
right. The WPA had plans. The WPA had plans to kidnap Burnham and transport him by motorboat, speedboat, to the marijuana area, right? And hold him out there. That was all the thing.
You would know that.
Man,
you tell him,
look, Freddie, they burned down national development. And the car that was supposed to be taking them, the car was parked over by the Belvedere Hotel. And the man panicked and drove away, and they were seen running towards Camp Street. Towards, not Camp Street, towards Church Street, right? But let's get it. I believe my position is this. I think that external forces were involved in the assassination of Walter Rodney. I think that I believe that there were agents at the state who collaborated with external forces. I think when you get rid of Walter, you were not only getting rid of Walter Rodney, but it also put Burnham in a very awkward position in terms of, look, Forbes Burnham, you're championing liberation movements and supporting liberation movements, and look, you're behind the assassination of Walter Rodney. Good. And I believe that is what happened. And I don't think Burnham gave the order. I don't think Burnham said that Walter should have been assassinated. I'll hold to that. And that's my position. But I believe that external forces were involved. You mentioned we were talking about an individual before we got into the studio that died. We were talking about him, right? And he told me many moons ago, he said that that equipment that was placed in that walkie-talkie was brought in by a particular embassy into this country. And he was a WPA member. He told me that. He said that that device was not put together. It wasn't made in Guyana. It was brought in.
So Gregory Smith didn't make it.
That's their position. That's what he said.
Well, I'm glad you
was
come in. You see, I can't take up time to bring in the Gregory Smith thing, the GDF thing.
No.
Because the GDF denied he was there. He was a member. Then it was proven that he was a member. Then Jerry Gavaya said, I flew out someone on the...
I am not interested in Gregory Smith saying that there's no Gregory Smith.
Anyway, Seeraj.
Right. I mean, there are things that we believe. There are things that can be proven. We have commission of inquiries where people are supposed to come and say what they know and all of that. During the commission of inquiry, I think there are reasons why some key persons did not turn up.
That's right.
Like Thomas and Rupert Ram did not.
I'm not calling names.
Bonita Bone did not testify.
I'm saying that there's some reasons why some key people did not
go.
I think it goes without saying that, of course, that the WPA was a militant group. Walter Rodney was an aggressive politician, a liberator, a fighter, a revolutionary. He was, I think, years ahead of his time in his thinking, and he was impatient to get Guyana out of the clutches of Burnham and the PNC at that time, and to position Guyana as a developing country truly liberated. I think Walter knew then that even during the course of that Burnham was a puppet of the Western power. The ABC countries, more so the A and the B. Right? And even at so in my mind, the state was totally involved in what happened with Rodney. Whether Burnham gave the order or not is to be determined. But like I said, I'm entitled to my view. And what is proven, well, I won't go there in terms of that. And I don't think the commission could conclusively say that based on the evidence that they received, that Burnham was responsible for his death, or that they cannot conclusively say that he was unaware either. But I want to home in on something you said about Burnham and in terms of this internationalism and all of that. And I have some reservation in terms of the PNC claim to have this expertise on international affairs and settling of border controversies and all of that. There's no doubt that they had, and they do have, the PNC back in those days, that they have quite a number of qualified persons, knowledgeable experience in terms of international affairs and dealing with issues, and position Guyana first within CARICOM and then globally and all of that. But we have to also be careful. If you examine some of these issues, especially your border issues, with a fine-teeth comb, you will find them lacking. The government of Guyana under the PNC and Burnham era, you would find them lacking in terms of how they approach our border issues and how they were settled. The New River Triangle case with Suriname, the demarcation of our boundary, as to say, in the Quarantine River at high water level and all of that. Totally unheard of before and quite against international principles of demarcation using a river. It's supposed to be at the middle. How the hell we end up at high water mark under government that's supposed to be highly qualified in the area of international relations and demarcation and all of that? Look at this issue with Venezuela. The 1966 agreement and all but should have never been. Right. You know, I won't get into the details because we are on a program here.
Yeah.
But when that agreement was signed,
speak your mind. And
it is proven that Burnham was still an agent of the CIA, was on the payroll of the CIA. Right? 1899, that the settling of the border issue with Venezuela should have been it. The Geneva Agreement, I will reserve my comments because this is a public forum, and we still have issues with Venezuela that those are not settled. I mean,
and you're a member of parliament.
I'm a member of parliament and all of that, and we got to allow the process to go along. And our people are meeting with Maduro people and all of that, and what happened out of St. Vincent is to be applauded and all. So we have a temporary respite. But Venezuela has not dropped their claim on Essequibo. And the Geneva Agreement is what is keeping it alive. is what is keeping it alive.
No,
so
no.
so the claim and what you talk about, I have a difficulty with that. When you on the face of it, yes, we can portray ourselves as the experts on all of that. But when you go into the finer details, you find the government at that time wanting in terms of the settlement and the terms and conditions of those settlements. And I mentioned those, like I said, the New River Triangle, the border in the Quarantine River, the Geneva Agreement, and all of that. So those things, can be dealt with at a later stage. But I'm saying that what the claim that they're making, that they're the experts on these affairs is not so rosy and bright and shiny.
I take your position that because of the Argyle Declaration, we should be careful what we say about the Venezuelan border. At least Venezuelans look at this program and say, we are violating the Argyle Declaration. So we go back alphabetically to 007. Now,
I would like to.
Oh, you want to
respond to what he says? He can't. I don't think my good friend can assail my party and I not offer some defense.
I'm sorry,
you're not involved.
I'm sorry, you are not in the party. You said in this program, I think this is your 5th appearance. You have taken a 7-year hiatus from
politics,
politics, B, party politics,
active
C,
party politics.
So, unless you didn't state it, you still hold a party card.
Whether or not I hold a party card to the PNC, I'm a PNC.
Okay,
you're the PNC.
I'm a PNC.
So you take it.
James is not in the PNCR. James is in the PNC.
How much years have gone from
the PNC?
How much years have been?
Where's the PNC?
3 years, 4 more years. He's on the floor.
Yes. First and foremost, it's the first time that I'm hearing someone have a negative opinion of the foreign policy of the PNC in those days, the 70s, the 60s, 70s, 80s.
He's pointing out some weaknesses in that.
And I must say, there's.
I'm a revolutionary.
Yeah, but we can't be revolutionary and still not give credit where credit is due. International law is not only premised on aggression. And as most persons would agree, when the PNC took office in 1966, it could not afford to be an aggressor in no way, shape, or form. Therefore, the PNC set about itself to not only strengthen alliances with various countries and organizations, but it spent a significant portion of its energies to develop a robust foreign policy. In terms of peace and security. When you say that is left wanting, persons like Rashley Jackson, Muhammad Shahabuddin, you're talking about Sir Shrida Ramphal, some of the greatest minds the Caribbean has ever seen. I don't think, Mr. SEERAJ, with all due respect, we cannot walk in their shoes. When Guyana in 1966 acceded to having the good officer process and to engage in negotiation, engage in conversation, dialogue, that was the point of foreign policy at that time, to always have the door open. We're not stronger than Venezuela. We do not want a war with Venezuela or Suriname or Trinidad or anybody else. Therefore, we must at all times secure peace and stability within our country. And we cannot look at that approach, and the same approach we're using now. It's the same approach we're using now. So I must say
that's what your point, or you're coming to it?
Yes, my point is very simple. The PPP is using our very playbook in terms of foreign policy.
Who's our playbook? Who? The PNC?
The PNC's playbook. In terms of using the good officers process, in terms of using dialogue and diplomacy. The PPP Civic is using the very same playbook of the PNC. As a matter of fact, I remember the PNC is part of the lead team for the PPP Civic government in its negotiations with this border controversy.
That's a misleading. Carl Greenwich is not the lead.
He's a part of the lead team
okay.
of the negotiations to secure our borders. We must be careful.
But that's assuming that Carl Greenwich sees himself as a PNC anyway.
How else will he see himself?
I don't think he sees himself as a... Anyway, go on, James.
Yes, very.
Sorry
Yes, it's okay, man. It's okay. Very, very simply, the PNC has stood out, and every single Guyanese knows this. As a matter of fact, that we have stood out when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to feeding, housing, and clothing the nation, when it comes to looking after our public service, looking after our teachers. No one could deny the fact that PNC has always looked after our teachers, has always looked after the public servants, and we cannot try to rewrite history with these kind of criticism. Of course, Mr. SEERAJ is open to his own opinion, and
like you,
like me. And but I dare say, sir, you're the first person I'm hearing that had a negative opinion of the foreign policy of the PNC. We have stood out. We have stood out, and you look at the amount of organizations the PNC would have formed. Look at it.
He's not finished. He's not finished.
I disagree.
He's not finished.
No, I don't want to take much time.
You're finished? Because you want to
I could go on, but let me stop.
No, go on.
No, let somebody else say. I'm a bite of the chair.
Alphabetically, so
I disagree with my friend SEERAJ when he said Bornham was a puppet of the ABC country and all that. Look,
he was.
Look, listen.
The archives are there.
Listen, there's a
material
saying.
released from the...
He was
on the CIA payroll.
Listen to this. There's a saying. Bornham used to, when they confronted Bornham, the Bornham said, fine tech. Listen. There's a saying. It's not how you started off. It's how you end. Right? Look at Paul. Paul was a persecutor of Christians, and he was so zealotic.
I know he was religious, Gerald.
In spreading the message of Christ. Look at where Bornham. You had at the time the PPP was receiving a lot of funding from the Soviet Union. The money used to go from the Soviet Union through the British Communist Party and on to Barclays Bank. Right? So you had tremendous funding from the Soviet Union. Bornham had no funding. If the Americans, and there was a Cold War period, and the Americans wanted to find somebody, and Bornham said, Bornham take it, but what did Bornham do? The Americans turned back and put sanctions and came down heavily and was coming down on Bornham. Bornham allowed the Cuban planes to land here and refuel en route to Angola. Right? Bornham allowed trawlers from here to take weapons to Grenada to help Maurice Bishop forces secure different strategic regions and all that places when they overthrow Gary. Bornham played that role.
Che Guevara was there in 1967.
Yes, Bornham came out early in support and boycotted goods, Israeli products in this country. Support for the Polisario Front in Sahrawi Republic. Early recognition when Rashid Jackson read it in Parliament of the Sandinista and all of those. Look at what the man took the foreign policy. Now let's come back here today. Right? I have no objections to President Ali receiving that award from the APN. Good? No objections. But I give him credit, I give him kudos for going to London, meeting with Boris Johnson, and telling Boris Johnson that Britain must issue an official apology and address the issue of reparations for Africans. He said that. I'm not interested in the ethnicity of the messenger. The message was delivered. Right? I give him plus for that. Former President Granger went. He met with the Queen, the then Queen. I don't know what he told the Queen. Right? I don't know what he told the Queen. But I know Ali went and he delivered the message. And I got no problem with that. I'm glad the message was delivered. Good. Nobody, you didn't hear any kudos given there, right? No kudos were given there. David Cameron, when he was Prime Minister, came to, you mentioning, I saw you mentioning one of the articles yesterday about the Windrush generation. David Cameron, when he was Prime Minister, went to Jamaica.
It's today's article.
Yeah, but Cameron went to Jamaica when he was Prime Minister, and he said in Jamaica that forget the issue of reparations. Forget it. We'll give you money. We're going to build a prison here. That's what he told Jamaicans. That they're going to send all them Jamaicans who serve in long sentences in Jamaica, they'll send them back to Jamaica. You mentioned the Windrush generation. A whole generation born in Britain, they just picked them up and deported them to countries where they don't even know they ain't got relatives. Right? Some of the Pan-African organizations, did they say anything about that?
Excuse me, Joe,
Only two persons.
The point?
No, the point I'm saying now, I'm giving credit where it's due. Those who are knocking Ali for the report, where were they when Cameron made that statement? Only two persons came out and condemned Cameron openly, myself and David Comishong, Barbados ambassador to CARICOM, and who's the chairman of the Caribbean Pan-African Network. Nobody said anything. Now, Cameron, as Foreign Secretary, came into this country and no one said anything. At the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, when they were tearing down statues and icons of racists and all of that, I called for the removal of the Victoria statue. It should not be in front of the law court. Nobody backed it.
Gerald,
these people are selective. In the morality and the pickings.
Yeah, but I find you and James are isolating, or you have selected areas of Burnham's strength as foreign policy. But why can't SEERAJ say, look, I find a foreign policy misdirection of Burnham, which has put Guyana's existence in question, the opening up of the border thing. But we can't discuss that. But the point I'm making is that Burnham's solidarity to Africa should be recognized. But at the same time, his omissions in foreign policy should also be acknowledged. I
ain't got a problem with that.
Before SEERAJ, it's your.
Listen, I grew up in the period under Burnham, right? One would say that Burnham was very pragmatic. Burnham came out of the belly of the PPP, right? He was a PPP man.
United PPP.
A united PPP. Gerald bring in a dimension here that we should never ever lose sight of. That is the influence of the external forces and the leverage they can manage within the country. Burnham didn't, in my opinion, depart the PPP on his own. Whilst he would have been ambitious and all of that, Burnham would have been influenced by external forces to take certain steps. I think in his heart, he was socialist oriented. He wants to,
he was a socialist.
Develop this country in his heart. This is what it was all about. But he had to give up something to get something, right? And he gave up on that that caused the disunity. And we will sit here and I will articulate positions that will be influenced by our history. And James will sit here and he will articulate position also that is influenced by it. We can't get away from that. It is how we objectively in today's environment seek to position ourselves and how we want to move our country forward. References will be made to our history every now and again, and how we look at it and how it influenced us. The determination that it had in terms of who we are, how we struggle and all of that. And that will always be there. But in terms of today's, what is happening here, I think some of those objections that was raised by Ali getting this award for global leadership here by these local organizations can be tied to some of the history that Guyana would have come through. An objection would have been made, and I want to be brutally frank here. Objections would have been made from a political angle and from a racial angle. Because some of those who believe that Ali should not have gotten it, not because he doesn't deserve it, but that because he's not a black man. Right? And these are things that we have to confront in today's society. We got to confront it. Some of us can be objective and say, he should get it, and others, influenced by our history, will go out there to condemn it. Jagan, again, look what happened. Jagan was ahead of his time. Even members of his own party cuss him up when he gave critical support. The same border issue. He came out there, and for all the wicked things we in the PPP accused the PNC of, rightfully or wrongfully, Jagan went out there and he stood with Burnham to represent Guyana, notwithstanding the election. So here again, we had history repeating itself, where the PNC-led, the opposition would have come out in support of the PPP in this controversy, and they rightfully or wrongfully so. So a lot of the things we say have unconsciously and sometimes consciously our history influence us, what we have gone through.
Of course.
And I spoke about the foreign policy of the PNC from a perspective that you look at it from a critical point. And I know, and you got to be very nimble in foreign policy, as James would have said, especially when you're not a power dog. You're not a powerhouse. You got to be nimble. You got to be able to walk among the raindrops, as the old politicians say, to achieve your objective. I think Ali was very nimble and agile to come about with a resolution that said, Maduro, you keep up there, let me move in this direction and handle this thing. And Barnum would have demonstrated that nimbleness back then, both in terms of foreign policy and in terms of staying in power and all of that. But if you look at Guyana and some of the issues that affects us externally, some of them are not settled, and those which are settled, you can find them wanting. That's all I'm saying.
I think we have a consensus here. This is what I interpret this panel to have delivered here. Bond 007 is saying, I accept the premise of Dr. Ali getting this African award. My discomfort is why the fuss when Burnham was getting a similar one and he was entitled to it. So James' position is clear. He accepts, recognize, and endorse Dr. Ali's Ghana award. But his problem is people make fuss with Burnham. Gerald's Pereira position is that I accept the man getting the award. The man went and batted for reparation. The man, I don't see why the man should not get the award, and I'm not concerned with those people who in Guyana, they all paper things. And then SEERAJ is saying the people had the motive in Guyana for criticizing the man. They had political and racial reason, but the man did his part to earn this prestigious African award. Now that is my interpretation. If there is any rejection or disagreement with the way I put it over, let us start with James or let us move on.
No, I agree with what you said. There's one caveat. I think Comrade SEERAJ would have listed two, political and race, for the objections. But as there was a money issue as well. There was a subvention issue. We should factor that in as well.
You mean Apology?
Was allotted a subvention, I think, of some $300 million previously, and that was taken away under this current administration. So one of the things, not just political, it's not just racial. We could put that in as much as we like, but for me, sometimes just come out a bread and butter issue. And as I'm on this point, let me just stretch it a bit further. I think and it might be a stretch, if there were persons in the Apology who were sympathetic to the PP administration, I doubt whether that subvention would have been pulled. And I think that's when I opened. I said there were some merits. Whatever merits there's some iota of merit in the criticism. Is that Apology would have said, look, we represent a section of Guyana, the Afro-Guyanese community. These monies were being used for the Afro-Guyanese community. Now this subvention is gone. We have to go to court for it. On this basis that we're objecting, rightly or wrongly, on this basis we're objecting. I believe there is some merit in that. Whether you want to agree there's a lot of merit or not. But there is that factor in which the criticism was based on the award. And I think I should make a plea. I always believe in trying to right or wrong. I do believe these subventions to whichever organization with proper oversight should go to the organizations. We should trust ourselves, trust our people to do the right thing, to to serve.
To give it directly to the organizations, you're saying that?
Yeah, to give it directly to the organizations and have them treat with the people. We can't always have control of everything. You know,
I agree.
We must allow for our own people to manage the resources. I don't think we should control everything. So I believe Apology should get their subvention. I know it's in court now, but I believe they should get their subvention.
Okay, before we go to Gerald, it's easy to say that this group, that group, this group in the Portuguese community, in the Chinese community are representative of the Chinese. I think there can be an argument that Apology is not representative of the African people. But Tom Dalgetty, I think, with Gerald Perreira, are the two longest serving Pan-Africanists in this country. And he had some very negative things to say about Apology and its representation of African people. But the object tonight is for Gerald Perreira, DHARAMKUMAR, SEERAJ, and James Bond to present themselves to the Guyanese people. So we go over to Gerald and then SEERAJ.
Freddie, I agree with
and
James.
Come to the point, Gerald. You're my friend, so I can tell you that.
I think, no, you see, it's a time and there's certain things linked I'd like to get in. I think that the money should go directly to the groups that are involved. They have those African groups in the various communities, rather than going to somebody and then being disbursed, if that is what takes place. I'm not sure. I've reached out many moons ago. I reached out to Apology and they never responded. So I don't go down that.
Well, I would say at this forum, I have known you. We were teenagers together. You, me, Leland Dikamba, Ronald Gordon, the Chinese guy we call Mao. And from those days in working West Wortmanville, you've always been a Pan-Africanist.
Yeah, I joined that.
So if you're going to talk about Africa in Guyana, I joined
that screen.
I was 18 years old when I met Tom Dalgetty, and I know Tom
was with Sigato, so a group that split. Anyhow, now back to President Ali. After he left St. Vincent and signing the Argyle Agreement, there was a blunder. That blunder he made, he came away from St. Vincent, and not too long after we had a British warship come into this country. That should not have happened, right? A couple of days ago, I saw some American general here saying that it's rumors and there's nothing of the sort that they're going to build a military base. The Americans, would you believe American general? I heard about this thing about building a military base years ago, but we can't take up time with that. Good? But a military base. And I never believed that I would live to hear. You're talking about Burnham? Certain people from the PPP, I heard Clement Ruhi calling for American military base in this country, and Ravi Dev. The Iraqis and the Syrians are pelting missiles
we have an aggressor on our border.
No,
we have a country,
I do not know, Freddie.
The army is 10 times bigger than us, and they want to invade this country.
Freddie, listen to this. I'll get you. I'm a patriot. And I'll defend this country. But people's memory are short. And I don't think you are one. Good? You know, if you go and you study this territorial controversy, the United States has always been, historically, in Venezuela's corner. Has always been. Go and do the research. Go into the U.S. State Department archives, and you will see it from the days of Grover Cleveland, when Betancourt, here, what I'm saying, U.S. is always back. When Burnham, the imperialists has always used the territorial controversy against a regime that they don't like. Whether the regime happens to be in Venezuela or Guyana. When Burnham was pursuing Burnham had the anti-imperialist course and his position in the non-aligned movement. Okay? The United States was pushing Venezuela to invade Guyana. They sold Venezuela F-16 fighters. And that was when Burnham launched the People's Militia. Now that they have a government in Venezuela, that they are opposed to because they kicked out Exxon. And what Exxon is doing in Guyana, they used to do in Venezuela. Good. So now they have a regime in Venezuela that they don't
What is
like.
Exxon doing in Guyana? We have a foreign investment here, Gerald.
No,
you
there's
tend
a
to
difference.
go in,
There's
but anyway,
there's a
the
difference
operator said 2
between
minutes left.
investment, foreign investment, and
Gerald, you
invitation
need to temper.
plunder.
You've been around a long time, and I think you need to see things in context. I mean, what is wrong with Exxon investment here? But anyway, Gerald.
What Exxon is doing in Guyana? Exxon is what two regimes, two governments have brought in Exxon to rape and plunder this country, and you call it investment?
Gerald,
man, Freddie,
we got Gerald.
No,
we have a foreign investor here.
No.
That will provide for a future for Guyana. We didn't have with sugar. Anyway, SEERAJ.
Who wealthy will get more wealth.
SEERAJ. I would agree with Gerald that going back even to the 1880s and the 1890s, the Americans were behind the aggression towards Guyana. It's the British who were supportive of Guyana. Right? They were there and they were pushing and so on. And of course,
but nobody will disagree with him on American imperialism. But this thing about Exxon raping us.
But look, remember the Beale. You remember the Beale deal story? They were going to put up some space stations on there. And then the aggression started again. Because people felt that if you put up an American space station here, then the American military will have to come and defend it and all. So there have always been fight against establishment. But I'll have to take you up outside on this thing what Clement Roy said. I don't believe that Clement Roy.
But Roy wrote that. Roy said that.
But
but he said it.
Right. Okay.
They were the only two that advocated for military base in this country.
It's in a letter in the stub.
I confronted him in Main Street.
Right. But this other
about it.
It was not warship, man. It was a patrol boat that was already in Barbados.
Roy said he wanted a base.
We gotta go.
Right. That was a patrol boat coming up the river. The thing was long in the making.
We gotta go. Let me ask the two of you something. I don't know. I asked him what is his favorite James Bond movie, and he said Moonraker. Moonraker is not even on my list. What's your favorite James Bond movie?
I like all of them, but
I use one of Pierce Brosnan movies.
I can't tell you. I like all of them.
You must like it.
More than 25. I think my favorite was Dr. No.
Dr. No. I would want to go with Dr. No if I remember correctly. I like the Goldfinger one.
I think from Russia with love one Thunderball. But
look, you know, long I haven't looked at it. Now I'm inspired now to go and look back at the 007 movie.
Watch me. You could go watch it from one to the latest one.
But we need to tell our viewers, a man came down here, a British documentary filmmaker, travel all over the world to see people who named James Bond that has some prominence in the country. And he came down here and interviewed the Guyanese 007, and it's in a documentary called The Other Fellow, and you will see the local James Bond. And these three persons that are here, my guests, will be back because they've always been generous to this program, and I want to get the three of them back for 1 hour to discuss the Rodney thing. There are some contradictions. If Bonham wasn't involved, why did Bonham allow a GDF plane? He's chief of staff, he's head of the army. Anyway, we gotta do this another time. It's been nice having Gerald PERREIRA, my friend as a teenager, DHARAMKUMAR SEERAJ that I've known over 35 years, and the famous Guyanese James Bond. He said he's a die-in-the-wool PNC, but we've always got along. As I normally say, catch you later. Bye-bye.